Hello and welcome to a video guide on the National Immunisation and Vaccination System, NIVS, used for the data capture of COVID vaccinations. NIVS for Covid is a point-of-care data capture tool for COVID vaccinations. Input into NIVS is mandated at point of care. It is a two-part process using the Insights platform to request access to NIVS. Once access has been authorized, you can log on to the NIVS application in order to request the roles you need to record COVID vaccinations. Typically, you'll be one of three types of user. Firstly, I will deal with a new user ahead of the automation process we are putting in place who needs to manually register on Insights. The following runs through the manual registration process. Enter your details, your first name and surname, then your email address. Select your job role, your organisation type, and your organisation from the drop-down list. Agree to the terms and conditions and press register. Once registered, you will be able to request access to the NIVS application from the list of available applications on Insights. We are also working with trusts to obtain a pre-approval list. These users will be automatically registered and an email sent to them to complete the Insights registration process. There are two important roles in NIVS regarding COVID vaccinations: patient COVID and NHS staff COVID. Entering batch details and the actual vaccination is the same for both roles, but there are differences in setting up a patient. In this video, I will go through NHS staff COVID first, up to add a vaccination, and then go through the differences adding a staff patient involves, before proceeding with the action of adding a vaccination. When you log into NIVS for the first time, enter your profile and select NHS Staff COVID as your role from the Request Roles drop-down. Choosing NHS Staff COVID will automatically give you access to the role of Patient COVID and vice versa. Don't forget to click Add. If you have already requested the role and have multiple roles, you can switch roles under your profile using Switch Roles and press Submit. Requesting a role requires authorization. The authorization list is monitored regularly, but you can send an email to agem.nivs-covid@nhs.net with authorization required in the subject line as a prompt. However, this can only be actioned if authorization approval has been received from the lead contact we have on file for your organization. Before recording vaccinations, you need to have entered details of the vaccine batch into the NIVS system. In the menu, click on Batch. This first step enables you to search either by batch or manufacturer to see if the batch has already been entered. If it has, you can edit it to check the details are correct. If it has not been entered, you need to add a new batch. At this point, we understand that early batches will not have the required barcodes to scan, so the details have to be added manually, which would also be the case if the barcode is not recognised by the scanner. All of the fields marked in red are mandatory. The expiry date and the defrost expiry dates are different. It is very important that these are correctly recorded for the deep freeze storage vaccines. The dates need to be in accordance to clinical guides and users should check with senior nurses if unsure. The system has been expanded to record multiple defrost dates for part batch defrosting. You can add extra dates using the Add button. For non-deep freeze vaccine types, the entry for a defrost date does not show. please remember to click Save. From the menu, click on Patient. You can look up a patient either by NHS number or demographics. If the app has recorded a patient already, you can edit their record if required. At this point, I will go back to the scenario of a new patient at first dose. The search has returned no patient found. Continue on to select Add a new patient. The mandated fields needed to add a patient are marked once again with a red line. In general communications to healthcare workers, they are being advised to attend with their NHS number available. Entry of an NHS number is mandatory. When entered, it will populate as many fields as it can. You can search for the NHS number by filling in the demographic details and selecting Search. An automatic search on demographics will occur if the staff number is entered and found on ESR. All mandatory fields must be completed before you can continue. I will now go through the differences of adding a non-staff patient. Under your profile, switch roles to Patient Covid and submit. Then choose Patient from the main menu and search as before. If a patient is found, the record can be edited to add a second vaccination or adverse reaction. As before, if your search does not find a patient, you need to select Add a new patient. Enter the NHS number if known, and it will fill in the rest for you. Then click Save, at which point you could add a new vaccination. Alternatively, you have the option to fill in the demographics of the patient and click the search icon in order to return the NHS number. Once saved, you can add a new COVID vaccination. All mandatory fields are once again marked in red. If any prior vaccinations are found on the National Immunisation Management System, they will show here, but should never replace the due diligence pre-screening requirements for clinical safety. But they can be a useful accompaniment to clinical safety checks. It is your responsibility to make sure the patient have had the correct dose at the correct intervals. Users should check with senior nurses if unsure. Please fill in the vaccinator and prescriber details for data completeness, although these are not mandatory fields. Choose the pre-entered batch number and the app will fill in the rest for you to complete the vaccination site and dose. Remember to hit the Save button to complete the vaccination. No data is written to the database until Save has been pressed. This will take you back to the patient screen and show the vaccination. You can edit the vaccination if you find that any of the details were entered incorrectly, i.e. location of vaccination. On this page, you will also see that you can enter an adverse reaction. I will come back to that later. During clinical screening, it may be found inappropriate to give the vaccination at this time. This must also be recorded in the system. Be it due to non-consent or it being non-appropriate, the date and the reason from the drop-down list need to be recorded and saved. Let's get back to recording an adverse reaction. After a mandatory period of observation, if there is an adverse reaction, you are required to record it in NIVS. If these are not recorded, it will create a serious clinical risk. To get to an adverse reaction, click on Patient and find them on the system, either by NHS number or demographic details. Click on the Edit icon to view the vaccinations, and then click on Edit the current vaccination. At the bottom of the screen, you can select Add Adverse Reaction. Once again, the mandatory fields are identified with a red line. Select the appropriate reasons from the drop-down lists, include any relevant comments, and don't forget to click Save, and you can return to the main menu or patient screen for the next vaccination. Let's review what we have covered. How to get access to NIVS and the user journey, preparing for a vaccination event, recording vaccinations, recording non-vaccinations, and recording adverse reactions. The use of NIVS is mandated at point of care, and you need to be approved by the lead for your organisation in order to use NIVS. The use of NIVS and the patient data it returns does not replace or override proper clinical safety checks with the patient. At all stages, do not forget to press Save to record your entries. This is good practice and ensures any data entered is saved, in case of a power outage, for example. All mandatory fields must be entered before the application will allow you to continue. The NHS number is mandatory and vaccinations cannot continue without an NHS number. Clinical guidelines should be adhered to. Users should check with senior nurses if unsure what entry is required. All adverse reactions must be recorded. Thank you for watching.